You're listening to the Frequency and Flow podcast with Breathwork, episode number 38. In this episode, I'm speaking with Tiffany and Victoria of Spirit Mamas, all about how they can lean into their strengths and work together better using their human design as they continue to grow and expand their business. Let's dive in. I am so excited for you to dive into this conversation with Victoria and Tiffany of Spirit Mamas. Not only are they great friends who I've been working with on and off within their business for over a year now, but I absolutely love what they do. And in a Frequency and Flow podcast first, this is the very first connection chart or connection reading that I have ever done publicly. So there's so much amazingness in this episode in terms of what we dove into. And what I loved about this episode is what I love about most human design readings in general, and what really came through in this one is that they absolutely know who they are and they know their strengths. And to see that reflected in their designs when I was telling them things about it was really fun. It was fun for me to share that because I knew how much they were already aligning to their design, and just understanding their design made them, gave them validation, it gave them confirmation. And then as we got into the episode, there were things that we talked about that they can just be aware of or that they can do better, and how they can just continue to grow together by using their individual strengths and how they come together to really strengthen their brand, grow their business, and just expand into helping more and more women and mothers specifically. So without spoiling too much of this fantastic episode that I'm so excited to share with you, I'll just let you get into it. All right, welcome to the Frequency and Flow podcast. Today I have two amazing, incredible guests. I have Tiffany and Victoria of Spirit Mamas. How are you ladies doing today?
Hi everyone. Hi. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us, Bree.
I know. Thank you so much, Bree. We've been looking forward to this conversation.
Yay. So let's just get into it. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about your journey with Spirit Mamas, how you guys came together, and what you do with the women that you serve.
What don't we do, Bree? No, I'm kidding. Hi, guys. I'm Victoria here. I'm an Akashic Records Reader, Breathwork and Inner Voice Facilitator, and one half of Spirit Mamas. Tiffany and I founded Spirit Mamas in 2020 after we both had the birth of our sons. It was my first son, Tiffany's second. And we each had our own individual journeys to get to that moment. Lots of healing, lots of growth, finding our own kind of spiritual modalities. But we really realized that there was some magic in us coming together to help mamas. And so we started out just kind of doing individual readings for people. And then we started holding full moon circles. And we were like, wow, this is really cool. When women come together in sacred ceremony, there's just this magical power of rising each other up, but also just how potent the space is when you're vulnerable with one another, when you're open, and because women are just like so freaking powerful. And from there, we've formed sacred containers like Healing the Mother Wound. We've held a couple retreats now, and it's hard to believe we're coming up on 2 years in business because I feel like it's been at warp speed, because we have found just this amazing community of moms that want to help each other and want that support on their spiritual journey and don't know where to turn. And so we're really grateful to be able to help them do that. And we like to say, like, we're not gurus. We're not here to tell you exactly what to do. We're here to hold space for you so that you can figure out what works for you and for your family, because it is such an individual experience. But we're also here to let you know that you're not alone, right? That whatever you're going through is totally normal, and someone else in our community has most likely experienced the same thing. And it's really amazing. And I'm really grateful every day that we get to do this work. Tiff, what would you say about our journey?
Oh boy, I think you covered it all. But I'm Tiffany, the other half of Spirit Mamas, a Reiki master, certified sound healer, intuitive, all those beautiful things. And I'm just happy that Victoria and I have allowed space for each other to create this space for mamas and women and people to go on this journey with us. And just like Victoria said, like, we aren't like the spiritual gurus by any means. Like, I have, the last 3 weeks for me, I've been in a down place of trying to figure things out spiritually. But I will say, like, we've built this community where we can lean on each other as well as the women that are in our community to kind of get through it all. And so I think that's the beauty of it all. And the fact that we are able to be very intentional with the space that we hold for our children, right? Because we do have the support from other moms on this journey with us. And so, I mean, Victoria, I think you've covered it all. I think it's amazing that we started in 2020, really with just trying to figure out how we could support mamas and into tapping into their own intuition. And now we are holding retreats, and we have all these amazing sacred containers that we hold, and we're on all these amazing podcasts like this one with you, Bree. And so we've really grown and expanded our reach in the last 2 years. And it's pretty freaking awesome how the universe worked in our favor because we were really following our true purpose. So I think that's it right now.
I love that. And as someone who's known you both for a while and been following you especially closely for the past, well, gosh, I don't know, year and a half or so, just seeing how you guys have taken off, how you've cultivated the ways that you work with others and the community that you've created. It really is so fun to watch. Like, it's a lot of fun. And as we'll get into in a second, it just so fits both of your designs, human designs, that I can't wait to share this with you. We chatted a little bit before we hopped on, and I was like giving them some like behind the scenes, and I have some little things up my sleeve for you guys. But I absolutely love that. And it's just been so fun to watch, not just like how you guys have come together, but how you're growing and evolving your offerings and like getting clearer and clearer on who you serve, how you serve them, and like how you do it as well is just very fun. So before we get into the exciting stuff with your design, why don't you guys just quickly for the audience talk a little bit about your experience with human design thus far?
So I know I'm a projector. And I don't want to say that's about it because that's not true. I feel like I go down the human design rabbit hole like once or twice a year. Working with you last year, Bree, really kicked it off for me to see that, wow, okay, there's so much information here. And I really love actually getting different interpretations from different human design readers because I feel like they pull out different aspects of my profile that I maybe didn't know or in that moment become super relevant to me. And so I'm really excited with what you have to share today. But I think working with you last year helped transform how I approach our business. Honestly, that I have a finite amount of energy and that I need to have fun while I'm doing things, and that the energy behind what I'm doing is, if not more important, but definitely just as important as any of the kind of like tactical business and marketing aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I really didn't dive deep into human design until we like met up last year, and you were like, you're a generator. And I'm like, what does that mean? And to be honest, like, because I'm so stuck on like the whole like zodiac stuff. So I find myself leaning more towards that than I do with the whole human design. But I know it's important, and I know it, really kind of projects like how I show up every day, right? And so I would love to kind of dive deeper, but I'm like, okay, I know generator is I think based on what you told me, Bree, like it's quite a huge percentage of us that are generators, right? And so just trying to figure out like how that shows up. But I'm excited to see how me and Victoria's paths cross and how we should work together based on those things. But yeah, that's about all I know. So when you joke, Victoria, like that's about all I know, I'm like, I just know I'm a generator.
It's so funny too, like, because I know if you're at this level, like astrology is actually a huge component of human design, but it's something that you only get into like in the depths of it. So, well, I mean, you could get into it, but it like I feel like it only starts making sense when you're in the depth of it. So, like someday, my dream, maybe I'm putting this out into the universe to manifest it, is to actually like talk or work with an astrologer and like really deepen my understanding of it, because I'm not even deep in studying it, but just from what I've like been learning, it's just so interesting. But anyways.
Speak it into
So
existence, sister.
I'm like getting called to buff up the astrology side of things, and I'm like, I know it's such a big undertaking. I'm like, am I ready? I don't know.
You got it.
So let's talk about what you guys would like to dive into today on this podcast.
I think Tiff hit on it. It's where do we, raise each other up? Where do we cross paths in a good or a bad way, right? Like, hey, what do we need to look out for in this business relationship, but also this friendship? And I think that's part of why we work, is because we are such good friends and we are so honest with each other, and we're able to work through any constructive things that come up in the business, and ultimately have it lead to strategy for the business. But yeah, I want to like hear all the juicy tidbits of how we correlate.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah, so I'll just dive into it. So when I'm in here, this is kind of fun and exciting, as this is the first time I'm really publicly talking through a connection chart, which is where you take one person's human design chart and you match it up against another person. Or you could do this for your business, you could do this for an offer, you can do this in many ways, but I've taken Tiff and Victoria's individual charts, and now I'm looking at them together in a human design chart, just so that people understand the context with which I'm saying this. But what's really interesting, so one thing that you both have in common that just like I almost laughed out loud when I noticed this, is that you both have a channel in common that is called the channel of synthesis, but it's about really, you guys both have strong emotional energy in your chart. You're both emotional authorities, right? And this channel that you have in common is about being emotionally sensitive to the needs of the tribe. And it's a very tribal energy, which makes so much sense with you guys being spirit mamas and with the community that you are creating. And what this really is like being not just emotionally sensitive to them, but it's like from the context of like protecting them, protecting their resources, helping them establish boundaries, and cultivating beliefs within them.
What? That's like big mama bear energy. Like, yeah. That's amazing.
And I can totally see that. Like, I feel like even like everything we do together with our community and how we work with our one-on-one participants, like, is very like protective, like, you're sacred, this is sacred. Like, so that's awesome to see that we both have that.
Yeah, well, and then Tiff, like you can point out, like I was thinking at our retreat when you were pointing out kind of some hard truths to some of the participants of like, all right, sister, like this is where things need to step up, or this is where you need to create boundaries. And that's really cool.
Yeah. So it just is so, I mean, to me, I'm like, that's spirit mamas in a nutshell. And so you both have that energy really, really strongly in your chart. So it's like, that's why you guys come together. You really jive on that. And like, like that's how Spirit Mamas was born. So I just like had to reaffirm that. I was like, wow, that's so amazing. I think so. Kind of going into what else like brings you two together from the perspective of your chart. So you have in your chart, there's a couple of places where you have different energies, but it's called attraction channels, where like Tiff, you have one energy, Victoria, you have another energy. And when they're what's called hanging gates, but when you guys come together, it like really pulls you together. That's like the spark energy of you guys coming together. So the first of those attraction channels that you have is called the channel of emoting. And so this again comes back to emotions and the fact that your emotions impact the room around you. So Victoria, to what you were talking about earlier about like how your energy is so important. So this is for both of you, like the energy, because your emotions control the room. So if you're not coming from a good place or like you're feeling kind of low, it's like better that you both, well, it's better, like when you guys come together, it's like you can really like amplify those emotions. And it's really like, what else is really cool about this one, the channel of emoting that you guys have as attraction channels, is that it's really good at not just like you're like blasting out emotions and influencing people with your emotions, but it also helps you attract people who resonate with you. So people kind of sense your emotions and they go, oh, that like really pulls them and magnetizes them into you.
That's cool. I think that sometimes we're open books on social media. I feel like for the most part, like we both share a lot of what we're going through, but I think that's a really beautiful reminder that we should continue to share and don't feel like it's something that is bad or wrong or shameful. And not that we do, but I feel like that gives me more of an inspiration to be that example, right? To say, yeah, I had a shitty day as a mom and this is what's happening with me. Or, I had a really great day and it was because I did these energy practices or whatever it is. So I think that's really cool. And do we balance each other out? So like if Tiffany's having a shitty day and I'm having a good day and we come together, like does that energy balance? Is that how that works too? Or it's just kind of amplified?
It could be a little bit of both. So I see it as like the energy gets stronger when you're together. So it's like you can come together and you guys can like your emotion, it's like that energy of the emotions comes together. So I think that means like I read that as, or interpret that as like you guys can balance each other, or you can help each other kind of, if one of you's low and one of you like, you can almost like help pull each other up, or you come together and you're like, Victoria's like, hey, I don't feel great today. Hey, Tiff, can you just like take the lead on this and I'll just support you? And like, that's, it's like, and realizing that power of that emotions and like being able to work together in that way. Like, that's what, I mean, this is an attraction channel. Like this drew you guys together that you could master, like when you're together, you master this energy better than you do apart. And so when you come together, you have your own process together within your business, even of like, because you two are the primary energy in your business. So it's like you have a unique process of processing emotions, managing emotions, amplifying out emotions. So it's like more of like together, you almost have a flow and a process together that is very unique and very, very strong that then you can help others with too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like we've had examples of that where I'm like, almost like we can tell, like we'll talk to each other and then later on we'll text and be like, were you having a bad day? Or, it's almost like we can pick up on that energy even when we don't say anything. So that's cool to see that we can like balance each other out a little.
I also think too, Tiff, of like when we come together for divine feminine healing, for example, like we know that's magic. We're like, this is really powerful. It's so much more powerful when we do it together versus when we do it separately. That's one where like, I'm like, we've felt that energy and it's like wild.
It's like really, really, really wild. Yeah. Pretty awesome. It's magic for sure.
I love it. So then the other attraction channel that you guys have is called the channel of wavelength. And this one I see, so this is all about like dedication and refinement of your skills and like getting so good and so practiced within your skills that it gives you creative freedom to iterate or to start doing things your own way. And so like the way that I interpret this is like when you two get together, what I love about you is you both kind of have your specialties, Victoria is an Akashic Records Reader and Breathwork, and Tiff, you do Reiki and like sound healing. And so you both are really practiced in your unique things. And when you come together, you're motivated to continue to better your crafts in those areas. And then when you guys come together and do retreats, it's like you come together, you bring these tools. I think of retreats specifically because it's like such a powerful container where you're in person, but this of course goes to like healing the mother wound and things like that. But it's like, then you come to those knowing how like we've got this. And then, and it's like, then you kind of have freedom to like use it or put them together in your own creative way.
Yeah, no, it's like, I feel like with our full moon circles at this point, we just kind of flow and then we'll add things that we are really good at. Like, I'm really good at like just calling in like instilling the circle in my own way or whatever. And then like, I think that makes so much sense. And I think like even with that first retreat that we held in the North Georgia mountains, like afterwards, I think Victoria and I, we kind of looked at each other like, shit, this is what we should be doing, because it was so powerful and so magical. And we just played off of each other. So I think it's cool that we have that in common, to kind of like, we definitely leaned into our gifts and just amplified them there in person. And I think we do that within our containers too. So that's awesome to see that. All this shit is cool. I'm like, oh my God.
And I like the way that I see this too is like you two come together, you two keep each other motivated to keep getting better too. Like if I would say, if you're feeling, I don't know, like what is the word, like stagnant, or you're feeling kind of like meh, I would encourage you guys to like come together, and like that energy will help you either like spark something new, or like a new way of practicing what you do, or maybe a new modality that you might get interested in exploring. Like you guys kind of bring out the mastery together, if that makes sense.
That makes so much sense. Like Tiff, is we have a new container that we're holding soon called Healing the Sacred Feminine. And I feel like that's exactly how that came about. Was we got on the phone together and we're like, hey, we have some rough ideas of, how long we want it to be and what we want to focus on. But within like a 30-minute phone call, we had planned the entire 4-week container. And it just felt like it magically dropped in, where it was like, oh, I can do sound healing here. Oh, I can do this thing here. And we looked at it and was like, holy shit, like that's it. Like that flows. That's beautiful. Like done. Let's do it.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I was like, okay, because I feel like, Victoria, you also being the projector, like you had kind of like laid out everything. But then when we got together, it was like everything just like came to light, and it was like, what if we did this here? I mean, it was so, I feel like when we stepped into that meeting last week, I was like, this shit's going to take us like another 2 weeks, because we're going to like, and then it just like was so beautiful. Like it took 30 minutes and we were like, okay, let's promote it. So it was awesome.
I love that. That's actually a great example. Like, so now we've talked about how you guys are similar, or like how your energy works together. So my next step is kind of like, okay, how are you guys different? And like basically summing this up. So like you said, Tiff, you're a generator, Victoria, you're a projector. So like on one hand, those energies always kind of work together but like taking that a level deeper. So Victoria, your chart is actually, even though you're emotionally defined, your chart is very like heavy in the upper centers, like your ajna center, your throat center, your identity center. So like you're very much like have a lot of that mental energy. So a lot of that planning energy, a lot of that like structure,
maybe too much
energy.
Sometimes.
Yeah, you and I both have a channel in common. It's called the channel structuring, but it's like they also like more commonly known as the freak to genius channel. So you like have ideas or things are like kind of crazy, and you can just like structure it and process it and make it simpler or make it make sense. So like you have more of that like planning mental energy, whereas Tiff, you have like a lot more of more energy in the lower centers, which to me like is a lot about intuition. It's a lot about like you guys both have emotional, but you have a lot of energy that's about like you being really in touch with like a knowing or an intuition, and like being able to read people a lot more deeply, like at a deeper level, like just kind of seeing people and like knowing things about them, or being able to kind of like look into their energy like at a deeper level. Does that resonate?
That definitely makes sense. Yeah, that's me for sure. Like I could walk in a room and be like, okay, I'm dealing with you or I'm not. And then that also goes into like just the intuitive counsel that I give people. Like it's just this knowing, and I usually go down a rabbit hole with them for sure, because it's just all this stuff comes up. But it's just a part of, I feel like, my gift. So that's interesting to see, like that's coming up on my chart.
Yeah. When it's nice to know I don't have to feel guilty I do feel a little guilty sometimes, because I tend to be the one that comes to stuff with Tiff and I'm like, let's do X, Y, and Z, or I've got to organize this, or like our recent retreat, trying to organize the like buses and stuff. I felt so bad. I like micromanage Tiff so bad. I'm glad we're still friends after that, because I was like, can you please call the bus depot like today? And she was like, girl, I'm going to do it in my own time. Leave me alone. Like, it's going to get done. But I was like, no, it needs to be done right now.
Yeah, I was like, you are stressing yourself. I was like, Lord, this pregnant lady is about to stress herself out. I'm like, I promise it's going to get done. I promise.
Well, I think that's like, I mean, that definitely speaks to that, like how you guys kind of complement each other or not. I mean, because I like how you even described before we even got into this, like how your new container kind of came up is that Victoria had an idea and then she kind of outlined it and then came to you. And in so many ways, that makes a lot of sense in terms of like how you guys work, not just because of that, like Victoria has that more planning mental type energy versus Tiffany, you have more of the like intuitive. It's not that Victoria, you're not intuitive, but it's like that innate, like knowing energy is more of what Tiff has versus like, and so also on top of that, with Victoria, you being the projector and Tiffany being the generator, it's like Victoria, you come up with something so that Tiffany can respond to it. So Tiffany does really good with like responding like yes, no, or like this needs to go here. And so that's like a very great energy or dynamic that you guys have with that is like um being able to like, yeah, like having that more mental, that structure, that planning type, and then like coming together and just kind of refining it. I think, but I don't want to discount because I think also this is where you guys kind of dominate or could compromise each other in the same way is that this doesn't mean, Tiffany, that you can't have ideas or you can't plan, but it's like you're going to need to kind of come to your own thoughts or beliefs away from Victoria's energy and kind of know where you stand before you come together. So,
oh yeah, I totally feel that a lot. Like, cause I also just internally, I process things. And for me, it has to be like laid out. And that's probably a lot of like my zodiac energy too. So for me, like I was telling Victoria, like I'm working on this thing where I really want to build out this course around the masculine and feminine. I think it's really important. But before I just toss it out there, like it's just internally I have to get everything in the and like in, and then I also go inside and I speak to spirit a lot too, and I'm like, okay, should I be doing this, should I not be doing this? And it's funny because like I feel Victoria does have that energy where it's like, and she's always been like even with corporate stuff, it was like out here, and then it would be like, wait, did we think about this and that? So no, I think it's cool. But yeah, for me, it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, okay, I got to process it first before I can just throw it out there. And that might be to my detriment too, right? Because I feel like sometimes I sit on stuff so long that I'm like, well, it doesn't feel right, or maybe it's not the right time. So, okay, that's interesting to know.
Yeah. But it makes sense too that you like to, I feel like every time we do stuff like this, it's always like, okay, Tiff, go meditate on it. Like, I know that you need to go meditate on it. And that's you like checking in with your intuition. Whereas I do it sometimes if you remind me to, but a lot of the times I'm like, oh, if this idea came in, then there's a reason. And it like is something that we should be moving on. So I like that. We should remember that like that fast and slow dynamic of us, there's a reason for that. And that like, it helps to have both energies versus one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, because Tiffany, you have a lot of open energy, undefined energy, like you guys both have your head completely open. So that makes sense. You guys get a lot of ideas. And even together, your connection chart has a totally open head, obviously. So it's like you guys are going to get a lot of inspiration, a lot of ideas. And so for Victoria, it's going to just like, yeah, like you said, it's going to come through. For you, Tiffany, it needs to like, because you have a lot of like, when you have things undefined, that means the energy is like, you might feel things come through fast. They might come through slow. They might take time. You might get some energy behind it. It might need to pause. And you also have an undefined throat. So it's like being able to, like, you need to be in the right energy. It's like, or the right space, or it needs to be the right like timing for things. Also, you have an undefined G center, all about like your identity and like direction and things. So you have all of these undefined, which just means you either need to put yourself in the right energy or like the divine timing type aspect of these things is really important, but it's like, because Victoria is like really defined in these areas, like it's really important for you to just let those things happen, and maybe like, yeah, like you said, give her a heads up, like, hey, I'm thinking of this new thing, but like allowing that to kind of like getting really clear and just trusting that if things are kind of fluctuating or things are, it's like you feel really good about it and then maybe you don't, or maybe you do, and then you're like, actually this is different, like my energy is different now and maybe this needs to change a little bit. Like just allowing that to happen is going to be really, and like doing that in a totally separate energy from Victoria, or at least like knowing where you stand, like getting to the point where you're like, okay, now I'm ready to like collaborate on this because I kind of know how I feel about this and this feels really good to me.
No, that makes total sense. Like all of that makes total sense. Like now I'm gonna go and like, are you gonna send us this chart together? Or
oh yeah,
okay.
I have a chart pulled up. It might not make a whole lot of sense, but I can send you this recording.
I'm gonna definitely dig into my generator stuff more after this call for sure.
I mean, this is stuff that's actually within your centers and your channel. So we're not even talking too much to the type, like you being a generator versus a projector. This is more a little bit deeper than that. But I think even at the surface level, like that dynamic of the projector and the generator all kind of feel, it's like you can kind of feel that energy of like how things currently are. But I think even deeper, it makes a lot more sense. I think another thing too with that is like, so Victoria, you have some like very, what is it, individual circuitry. So you and I have that one channel, that like Freak to Genius channel. You also have another channel that's called the channel of inspiration, which is also on individual circuitry. So even though together you both have a lot of tribal energy, Victoria specifically has some like individual energy, and also that to me is kind of, it's like, and that inspiration channel is like a very creative channel. So I feel like it's important too for like Victoria, for you to kind of almost go off on your own or do things kind of on your own as well, and like have a separate channel for that creativity, have a separate outlet for that creativity, or maybe projects that you work on outside of that, or that kind of either complement what Spirit Mamas does, or I don't know. I'm trying to think.
No,
of
this makes total sense, Brie, because I've got like a book that I'm writing on the side that's like all me. So
I didn't even know that. That's so funny. I feel like a psychic right now, and it's just me reading your chart.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's so funny because I told myself I wasn't creative for the longest time. And when I finally realized, like, no, I really am. And honestly, everyone is. But that's an outlet for me. Like, I enjoy making our silly Instagram graphics. Like, I enjoy making our reels and stuff like that. But it's nice to know, yeah, these outside things like the book and even the way that I approach my one-on-one clients is under Spirit Mamas, but is still very much like my own thing. And the way that I set up how I work with them and all of that is very different than how Tiffany works with her one-on-one clients. And so that's a little bit validating, right? Just to know that that's naturally what I've been doing. And there's a reason for that. And it's not just because like I'm over here doing my own thing. Like, no, it's because I need that outlet for both, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like, because you have competing energies, like you have very strongly that tribal energy, but you also have very strong individual circuitry. And it's like those can work together, but it's just, if you're trying to force too much of that individual energy into like tribal energy, it's like, it just doesn't, like there's just things I just need to do on my own,
And I feel it's funny because I feel like how Victoria just mentioned, like, if you go on our website and look at like her offerings, like it's totally, I mean, it's a part of Spirit Mamas, but it's her thing. And the way she does it is totally different. Like she's literally so creative that she builds out these like individual containers where she's working with people over a certain amount of time. Right. And so like, I feel like you're already doing it. It's just happened so naturally.
Yeah. It's like, I see that too, for sure. I mean, and it's so funny too, because, so then like on the other side, like going back to like where maybe Tiffany, your energy kind of like dominates Victoria's. Dominate. It's called a dominance channel. Like dominate is a strong word, I feel, or like a strong word, but it's like where your energy is kind of forceful on Victoria's energy is because you have such like tapped in intuition. You also have Tiffany, what's called the channel of mating, which is like, yes, there's like a reproductive undertone to it, but it actually is very much about intimacy and like really like cutting through the layers of people. And so, and like, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but I feel like you're able to just do that so clearly that sometimes, like Victoria, you might be like, it, when you two come together, it's like Victoria, you might feel what's the word, like you don't have that gift, or like you're feeling inadequate kind of in that area, or like
It's so funny. When you did that stuff at the retreat where you like called the people out and you were like in it, it's funny. Part of me was like, damn, I wish I could do that. But then part of me was also like, no, I don't. Like, that's fine. Like, I don't need to do that with people.
It's a lot. It's a lot of energy. It's funny because when we finished, you were like, "Are you tired?" I think somebody's like, "You sure you want to do everybody else?" But it's funny because but Victoria, I feel like you lean into it too. Because even when you open the Akashic, a lot of times you're like, "Tiff, I feel like you're getting something. Like, what's coming through?" And a lot of times when you open the Akashic, so much comes through for me too. And I try to like stay in my lane because I'm like, oh crap, like, okay, this is her time to do the Akashic, but it's like all this crap coming through from me too. But I think at least in our full moon circles, in our containers, like I feel like we kind of bounce off each other. But I think for Victoria, I think that was your first time at the retreat where you're like, oh, this is because I pulled Victoria to the side and I was like, so this intuitive counsel, like I kind of like to work with people one-on-one because a lot of stuff comes up that people may not want to share with everybody. And so it kind of worked out where I was like pulling people to the side and it was like a lot that like, I'm just doing my thing, but it can be a lot sometimes because it's just like it flows and it just comes and I'm like, where the hell does this come from? So, but yeah, that's interesting. Very,
yeah.
I'm like intrigued.
You also have, I know, and it's like not just, it's like in that regard, you also have something called the channel of surrender, which is like colloquially known as like the sales channel, where it's like you know what people need, like you're really good at matching people with like what they need and how they need it. And so that's another where like I say this from like it's more of like a subtle for like you to be aware of around Victoria, where it's like your energy there kind of like dominate, like I keep coming back to the word inadequate, like where maybe Victoria you're kind of like like undervaluing the gifts you have there when you're around Tiffany or something, or like, but just, I mean, it seems like you guys have kind of like figured out how to balance that together, but it's just something I feel like to be just as allowing Victoria to kind of go off and do her own thing. It's like kind of like just, when Tiffany's in her zone and she's like really deep, it's like, okay, that's like her really like strength channel around me. And I'll just like surrender to that and just let her do her thing.
Exactly. One, I love too that if Tiffany's the better person to share something with someone, like I have no qualms. I think both of us are great about that, where it's like, I think you said it perfectly with when I open the Akashic sometimes, I'm like, no, Tiff has something to share that needs to come through. And I think both of us, because we come from such a pure place of just wanting to help people, that it hasn't been an issue. And hopefully I don't think will be an issue, because both of us are going to be like, we want this individual person to get exactly what they need. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if it's coming from me or if it's coming from Tiffany. It's whoever is the right person to deliver that information to them is what we want them to experience. So I'm just glad that we naturally have fallen into that, Tiff.
Me too. I'm like, it naturally happened.
I know. And I'm like, your chart just like so describes this, because when I look at like your incarnation crosses, so Tiffany, your incarnation cross is kind of like a primary aspect of what your purpose is here. Like when you think about like, what's my purpose? So Tiff, yours is to like, it's called the cross of tension. And it's like, you make people get uncomfortable so they like go past their comfort zone. It's like you kind of like push people a little bit. And then Victoria, yours is the cross of explanation, which is all about verbal expression. So when you said like you're putting together a book, makes a lot of sense. And like pushing out and communicating the needs of the tribe, like the emotional needs of the tribe. And I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense because I know, Victoria, you're more in the social media. You're kind of the more outspoken publicly, like when you on social media and things like that. So it's like, I almost, it's like, I just see that balance like so funny, like, so it's so apparent. And it's like you two are already kind of living into that. And it's like how you, when I think of purpose from a human design perspective, it's like how you impact everyone that comes into your path, and it's like, so Tiff, you're getting really deep, you're getting really intimate, you're kind of pushing people, pushing buttons that they need pushed. And Victoria, you're kind of observing things, you're like putting that like structure to things that you're seeing for the tribe. And you're like, so that's why I love that you're like, yeah, moms need help. Like not everything is perfect or not all days are good days. Like we need, this is what moms need, or like what we need at this stage. And like, that's more of like, you're here to be the loud, like in a way, the loudspeaker of the tribe that you represent.
I love that. Yeah. Cause I'm always the one on Instagram stories. I'm always telling Tiff, I'm like, you need to hop on. People need to see like your magic too. And she'll do it when I like bug her. But I tend to be the one that naturally is like, let me share everything that's happening in my life.
Well, it's just so funny because naturally I'm like, I'll tell Victoria, I'm like, so Spirit told me not to get on social media for like the next 5 days. And I can't, I have to listen to Spirit. But so it's so funny because even when I get on, it's like, I know I need to get on, but it's like, if it doesn't feel right, I'm like, I feel like naturally it doesn't come out naturally or natural if I'm not feeling but that goes back into that intuition thing. Like, but no, I do it. I just don't do it as often as Victoria.
I wonder if there's like a way, and this is just something to ponder, I guess, is like, because Tiffany, your energy is like really, it's like, it's a very strong, like one-on-one transfer. Like, not that you can't do it at a group level, but to me, it feels so, it's just so, there's so much intimacy in like either small group or like one-on-one. So it's like, how can you do things for marketing? Like, cause maybe the big stuff on Instagram and stuff like that, like leave that to Victoria, but like, how can you do things that contribute to marketing where you get to show more of that magic on that one-on-one? Like, is that instead doing lives, or like your way of contributing is like doing a live where you pull someone on and do like a mini something with them, or just like things where you can like use as marketing content where you are getting that more like intimate connection versus just saying like, doing more of the, where Victoria is more like the really pushing out to the masses kind of stuff.
No, that's a really good idea. And it makes sense because even when I just do those like Reiki reels, like the comments are very like as if I'm doing it just for those people, like as if nobody else exists. And they're like, oh my God, I totally felt that. And I'm just really being, I'm doing my thing, but I am trying to like narrow into our audience and like make sure that I'm thinking about the people who are truly following us when I do it. So like being intentional with the energy. But I think it's interesting because like when you look at the comments, it's very like intimate, like as if it was just me and them in the room, when in reality I'm like sitting in front of my window and I'm doing all this stuff. But no, like that's a good idea. I'm definitely gonna like lean into that and think about how we can be more of like a one-on-one type of thing.
I mean, that's probably why.
Tiff. Oh, sorry, go Bree.
Well, I was like, that's probably why you're getting messages like, no, I don't want to do Instagram this way, because it just doesn't really work with your energy the same way. It's like you and Victoria are different, and that's a great thing. So it's like, I really, it's like knowing that the way Victoria handles your Instagram account is not the way, like, or puts curates content for it is not the way that you should be doing that.
I think that's really good to know, but it makes me think too, Tiff, like every time you're in person with people or you go somewhere, or you have a trip or whatever, you come back and you're like, I talked to 5 different people about spirit mamas and we're so connected, whereas like, that's not my energy at all.
Right.
So it's like, maybe there's something there too in that of like, that you're more in person or in the community, or I love the idea of like pulling someone on live and doing like a live thing with them that way as promotion. That's a really good one, Bree. I really like that. Cause then that way, Tiff, you can find your own voice and what works for you. Cause it's very different than me. But you have magic in those Reiki reels. So there's something there.
Really interesting. Okay. No, I love that. I love that. Thank you, Bree.
You're welcome. Well, I feel like I could, like, honestly, was like the surface level of notes and things I could talk about, but I know we've been talking for a while. So, but I feel like we hit do you guys feel like you have some good things to take going forward from here?
Yes, for sure. Yes. Was taking notes. So I just actually have a notebook. I know I'm going to listen to this over again, but
I know I can send you guys to like the raw recording too, since this won't come out for probably what is it, a month from now. So, but before we do wrap up, I want you guys to share just where people can find you, like the best way to work with you, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so we're at spiritmamas.com. You can find all of our current offerings. And we're super active on Instagram, spirit.mamas. We have lots of continuous containers that we're holding. We have an amazing monthly membership community. Our Healing the Mother Wound and Healing the Sacred Feminine series are ones that come back multiple times a year. So please feel free, if that feels like it's calling to you, to join the waitlist to learn more. But send us a DM, come say hello. We love interacting with people, meeting people. Our community now is literally across the globe. I'm still amazed that we have women from like Sweden and New Zealand and all over. So if you've got the internet, you can find us, and we'll be excited to have you. Thank you so much, Bree. This was beautiful.
Yes, thank you, Bree, so much.
How incredible was that episode? When I was looking up their chart together, their connection chart, and I saw the common energy that they have together and just how perfectly it aligned with the mission and vision and purpose of their business, I just about like fell off my seat. I really absolutely just love how they innately like tuned in and kind of stepped into that purpose. And I love being able to go layers deeper than just, being a projector or a generator, and really getting into the more nuanced energy of their charts in terms of their centers, their channels, some of their gates, and really get into the nuts and bolts of how they work together really well and their individual strengths that they can tap into to expand their business in their own way. So they are such a gem of a duo, and I just absolutely love everything they do. I've adored watching them grow over the past, probably year and a half now, maybe a little more than that. And they're just so wonderful. I have nothing but great things to say about them. So with that being said, if you're looking for more guidance as you integrate your own personal design into your business, you can start with some of the free or low-cost options that I have, including the workshop series, Human Design, Marketing Strategy, and Business Alignment. And you can find the link below in the episode description. And if you learned something new or resonated with something we talked about in the episode today, I would absolutely love to meet you. Go ahead and share your favorite part of the episode on your Instagram stories, tagging me at Bree Couric or at spirit.mamas, and just send a DM and say hello and share what you learned or what you really resonated with. I cannot wait to hear from you.